Stephen means crowned with victory. His middle name, Josiah, means Yahweh heals. Stephen was born at 12:28 a.m. on September 3rd, 2012. He was beautiful with dark hair, lots of hair, darker skin, and blue-gray eyes. He was precious. He smiled early on, and he smiled often. Big brother Joseph loved his new little brother to pieces from the moment he laid eyes on him. On Tuesday, October 16th, 2012, Jorge noticed a large bruise with a knot in it below Stephen's right knee. Then Wednesday night, we found another. At that point, I was concerned.
We live in Centerton, Arkansas. It's in Northwest Arkansas. It's like 3.5 hours from here. Very close to Oklahoma, very close to Missouri.
Small, but it's home.
During our trip to Little Rock, which is roughly 3.5 hours, we had to stop 2 or 3 times because Stephen continued to be in pain and had started vomiting. We checked in, and as we walked to our room, I looked at Stephen's appearance and knew something was terribly wrong. He was so pale, and even more jaundiced looking than usual. Within the hour, we were checking into the ER at the Arkansas Children's Hospital. He continued to get weaker as the medical staff tried and tried to draw more blood for tests and start IVs. On top of that, every place he was stuck continued to bleed since his blood was not clotting. And then she entered the room. We believe that Stephen's liver is failing. When this happens, there's not much time. We have to move quickly. I stepped out of the room to update my friends and family, first calling my mom. Calmly, I explained everything the doctor had just told us, and then my throat tightened. I felt my nose begin to tingle as my eyes welled up with tears. I can't do this. The thought was unbearable. Facing the news that my son was dying. Please don't misunderstand. I had been texting and calling family and friends, giving them updates all day. So even in the heartache of my son dying, I had a peace knowing that God was in control. I sat close by and waited. He became more and more lethargic. The life was draining out of him. Stephen's eyes started rolling and moving in abnormal ways. I felt as though he was dying right in front of me. The doctor who'd come down with us announced he had bleeding around his brain, and his brain was swelling quickly. Brain is swelling. Heart rate is dropping. Pray for a miracle, I texted to our prayer chain of friends and family. Jorge cried, and I just stood there, staring at Stephen while medical staff scurried around him. Jorge stepped aside and told me to move too. And I shook my head, and I looked at Stephen's tiny hand holding my finger. He was holding it so tightly. "Come on, Amanda," Jorge said. Tingling began in my nose again as water started to pool in my eyes. "Don't make me let go, Jorge. He's holding my finger." It was a connection, a bond that I didn't want to lose. Even though Stephen's body became more limp and fragile by the second, if I tried to move my finger, Stephen would grip it even more with whatever strength that he had left. They told us he'd most likely need blood, as well as clotting factors, but the outcome was still iffy. Surgery went well, he started. He explained that they were able to drain the blood and fluid from around his brain. "What about the clotting factors?" I asked. His face showed disbelief when he said quietly, "We didn't have to use them." Bleeding stopped on its own. "That's God," I stated matter of fact through a big smile. Once Stephen was back in his room and ready, we went back to see our little miracle baby.
Being in a hospital for so long, it's kind of comparing to being on a war, and sometimes you feel like you lose. There's days that you feel like you had bad news and you're confused, you don't know what to think. Some other days you feel like you're winning. Ronald McDonald's house, for me, kind of feels like at the end of that tough day, you had a place to come and rest and know that you will be safe and gain energy, and then go back the next day and fight with your child.
To have a place like Ronald McDonald House where it's not just for adults, it's for your family, was incredible in our circumstance because of the fact that we had Stephen in the hospital, but Joseph was able to come at various times and stay in the Ronald McDonald House too. And so we were able to be together as a family